This video demonstration will go through the differences between stored actions, non-stored actions, and a P1 action. A stored action executes even when not on the step. And one of the ways that you'll notice it's a stored action is that there will be this green box just to the left of the stored action, which means that it's being executed. Whereas a non-stored action, like in this box here, is being executed while it's on that step. So right now, for example, the pump motor mode is 1, the volts is 0, the ball valve control is 0, meaning closed, and the heater is off. Now, when I move to the next step, it'll go to a P1 action. Now let's have a look at that. And to move to the next step, I have to make sure that the upper capacitance sensor is not true or false. And I have to move the lid float switch. So I'm going to do that by pressing this button. And it goes to the P1 action. Now notice it's on that step, but you can see that there's no green little icon in front of that step. It means it's executed that step already, and it's waiting for this transition to be true, but it's no longer executing that step. Okay, and for this transition to move to the next step up here, I have to make sure that the temperature, degrees Celsius, is greater than the final temperature. Right now, the final temperature is 29.2, and the current temperature is 9.8. So as I move this up, you can see the temperature is going up, and eventually it hits that 29, and it comes over to here. Now notice in this step, there is a little green icon in front of that action because it's executing this step currently. So let's just do that again. I click this. It executes this one time. It's waiting for that to go true. And you can see here the final temperature is 58. So I have to add another 20 degrees. I'm currently offline. And if I wanted to add another action in the step box, I would right click and go to add action. I'm not going to do that right now. If I want to change the qualifier, I click on this P1 icon. There's a pull down window and allows you to select non-stored and stored and a P1 action. So that's how you do that. If I want to add another step and transition, that's done from going up to the top boxes and clicking on those icons. Now, as I said, the stored action is running all the time. So that means that whatever value this integer variable is equal to, it updates the level sensor. Same thing for the pressure sensor, temperature sensor, and so on. Here's an example of a simultaneous branch. So you can see there are two possible branches here. It'll go down this branch if the flow is less than 2 liters per minute. And it'll go down this branch if the flow is greater than 2 liters per minute, greater than or equal to. It will execute this step, and then it'll execute this transition, wait till this transition is done, and then move to this step. Now, how do I create this? Here I've deleted all of the selection branch components so we can add new ones. So to start with, what you're going to do is select this icon, and I'll move this window down a little bit so you can see it. We want to select this icon here, which is the selection branch diverge. So I'm putting them here, and I'm going to lower it down a little bit just to show you how this is done. And then we want to have another step transition for each side. I'm going to put one here and one here. And we're going to connect these. And we're going to connect this. If everything is connectable, you get those green circles. And then the very last step will be to take both of these transitions and highlight them. So highlight the left one, highlight the right one, and then select Converge SFC Elements. And then it will connect them. And then what I can do is bring all of this down. I can drag it to move it around. And I should now be able to connect this over to this. And then it's just a matter of adding the actions. So I can click on Add Action. And this is maybe a good time to show you what you can do within that action. You can click on this Properties box, and there's an indicator tag box, which then I can use to, for example, if I wanted to see the temperature all the time, I can click on Indicator, Temperature Sensor, degrees Celsius, Apply. And now you are always going to see the temperature when you run your program. Okay. If I wanted to create a delay, one of the ways I can do that is click on this box and then set the preset to, say, 4,000, which represents 4,000 milliseconds. And then here I can say step 003.done. It's just a matter of typing in step 003.done. Okay, and it will wait at this transition until that step is done. One of the other things you might want to do at a selection branch is change the priority. Does it test this side first, or does it test this side first? And you do that by clicking on the wire, right-clicking, set sequence priorities, and remove the default. And I could say that transition 3 is going to be tested first. So I move that up and I select OK. Now, normally it's the one that on the left that is by default tested first, but here I've changed it so this one gets tested first. Kind of depends on your application. Now, make sure that when you are defining a variable, such as the one that I've put here, you use an assignment statement. So this statement is basically saying pump motor mode is equal to the value of 1. So the variable on the left is assigned the value that's on the right. Make sure it's semicolon or colon equal to, and then finish the statement with a semicolon. If you want to add a comment, it's just 2 slashes, such as this, and your name, if that's what you want to add. Oops. That's not what I wanted, so let me finish that again. And there we go. Okay, so that's a little bit on adding a selection branch. Very useful in one of the cases for Lab 6B. Hello, in this example, we're going to look at a step delay. So to create a step delay, I have currently this running program. And if I come down to where it says ball valve, that's one of the steps. And you can see that there are 3 dots in a tiny square. If you open that up, it'll tell you the step properties right here. So the preset of my step delay is 4,000, meaning 4,000 milliseconds. And that's part of the done bit that I need to test. Okay, so you can actually see that there's a done bit here. So if I cancel this, what I'm testing for is this step being done. And it's done down here in transition number 2. So it's testing to see if the ball valve step is done. So let's test it. So to operate it, you can see that it's sitting on step 001 because of the green box. This green icon here tells you it's executing this step. And then it's waiting for this transition, which is not S111. So if I click this button, it's going to change it to a 0. It executes this step for 4 seconds, then moves to the ball valve done, and then back to this step. Let's do it one more time. Okay, and if I go offline, we can see here that if I wanted to change the name of this step, all I have to do is double click on it and I can create a new name. Let's say I wanted to change it to just BV. Okay, I've got that new name, but it comes up indicating that there's an error because that name hasn't been used before. It's an undefined tag. So I right click on it and go to new BV, and it's an SFC step. So I do create. And then this name has to match that step. So I just change it to BV. And when I do that, it shows you all of the possible names that I could make use of, including the done, the count, and so on. So let's test this out. We go download. And click download. So the program is running now, and so let's test it out by clicking this button, and it moves, it moves to the next step. Let's put the whole thing on the screen. So it's waiting for the lid float to go to 0. That should happen right now. Okay, previously I didn't have the 4,000 in there, so now I do. So it'll get to this step, wait 4 seconds, and then move to the next step. I can even add that delay so that I can view the amount of time. So let's do that. So to do that, I'm going to go offline, and I'm going to go to this action and bring up this menu. And there's a box here for indicator tag. I'm going to use the indicator tag for the ball valve dot timer. So to do that, I find I can filter by BV. Okay, I find that. And one of the variables in BV should be the timer. So it's right here. And just do apply and OK. And so now I should have that time up on the screen so I can monitor it. Okay, and let's download that. Now we can display the status of the timer at this step, and you can see that every time I press the float, it's waiting at this step for 4 seconds, and then goes down here, realizes that that step is done, and then back up to this step. And you can see it's going from transition 2 all the way back up to this branch up here. Let's try it again. And it seems to work okay. So over here, let's zoom in on this a little bit. These are my stored actions. So these actions continue to be executed even though we're not on this step anymore. So right now, this is a non-stored action. So it's working on step 001. It's continuously controlling the pump motor volts, and so on. But up here, these actions are being executed all the time. That's why when I make a change on my simulated values, they're continuously being updated. So I can hover over, for example, level sensor integer, and it's 6429. My pressure sensor integer is 4911, just like on the simulator. And it's updating the millibar value, the millimeter value, and the flow in liters per minute based on this equation. And just like if I wanted to change the value going to my proportional valve, in this case, the value here is equal to 25 for 25%, and it's sending out a value of 2500 to the proportional valve volts. Okay, so that's the integer value that's going out to that register. So it's all making sense for this type of an action, a stored action. So that can be very useful for any time you're working with variables and you want to update those variables constantly in your program.